I can only speak for myself, but paying it forward, it makes me feel good, especially this time of year. And that's kind of how I think of supporting Boise State Public Radio podcasts, paying it forward. That's because we don't require any money in order to listen to our podcast. You don't have to pay a fee to hear a locked episode. You don't have to subscribe to a feed in order to hear the podcast. You can listen and share to your heart's content free of charge. But it does cost money to make these things. And if you're able to pay it forward, between now and the end of the year, we would greatly appreciate your support. If you feel so inclined, if you feel so inspired, please go to boisestatepublicradio.org right now and click that blue donate button. Any amount, any frequency, it all helps the bottom line here at Boise State Public Radio. Thanks in advance for your support. And of course, thanks for listening.
From the studios of Boise State Public Radio News, I'm Gemma Cadet. This is Idaho Matters. You've probably heard the term the other side of the tracks, which has been used in books and movies to describe a town or a city that has been divided down the middle by railroad tracks. Well, it's not just a literary device. This actually happened in a lot of places as development grew on both sides of railroad lines. In fact, this happened over time in Pocatello, where the tracks have caused a split between the downtown core and Idaho State University. And it's not easy or frankly safe to try to walk or bicycle across that quarter mile of rail yard. So Pocatello's mayor, Brian Blatt, wanted to find a way to reconnect his city. And after a lot of time and energy, he overcame some negative feedback and he won an $8 million grant to bring the two sides back together. And he's joining us now to talk more about this. Mayor, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Gemma. Thank you very much. I'm excited to talk about this program and very excited about this grant that we've been able to win.
So, Mayor, can we talk about the railroad tracks themselves? For folks who might not be familiar with Pocatello, where exactly are the tracks?
So that's a great question. If you're not familiar with Pocatello, Pocatello was created because of the railroad. And so when the railroad came in, they put the tracks down. Most of the community was built on the west side of the tracks at that time. You had a few people on the east side, but most of the people lived on the west side. Right now, today, you have literally half of the city on the west side and half of the city on the east side. And when I say half, I'm going to say 40% of the population lives on the west side, and 60% of the population and businesses are on the east side of the tracks. And so it literally splits Pocatello in half.
So with that said, Mayor, are any of the neighborhoods on one side of the track or other struggling economically because of this split?
Yes, on the west side of the tracks, it seemed like it's an older part of town. And so it did seem like there was a lot more struggles getting people over there. Like I said, most of the businesses in Pocatello are on the east side. And so people would have to go to the east side to really buy things, any kind of commerce you had. For the most part, we do have our beautiful historic downtown area that has a number of businesses, and those are great businesses. But when I start talking about and thinking about most of the businesses, you look at your fast food restaurants, you look at your grocery stores, you look at hardware stores, we look at all of those other forms of commerce. They were mostly, in fact, all of those were on the east side until just recently, the last, I guess it's been probably 25 years ago. We have a grocery store on the west side of town. It's kind of on the north end of that. And so you still had to travel to get there. Economically, it was in a low income area because the new homes and bigger homes, it seemed like, were being built on the east side of the tracks. And so, yeah, there was definitely an economic disparity between the two areas.
So how easy or difficult is it for folks to maybe walk or bicycle over those tracks right now?
So that was one of the reasons we decided to really look into uh, this grant opportunity and try to see what we could do. We did have Utah State University come in, and they helped kind of guide us in what we could do and different ideas for it, because at the time we had one spot for people to safely, and I'll say safely, walk through, and that was our underpass. You could cross the tracks underneath the tracks safely, without cars driving literally right next to you. You would have a wall, concrete wall, and you would never see the cars as they drove back and forth east and west as you walked. If you went to the other two access points, they had sidewalks over the top of them, but when a car is going 35 miles an hour over a bridge and you have no protection, it's kind of nerve-wracking, and you wouldn't have kids and other people really walking a lot of over the top of those. And so I would say we had three access points, but the reality, there was one access point that was utilized. The others, very seldom did you see anybody walking over the top of those bridges.
So, talk to us about when you started forming this idea of really trying to bring the two sides together.
Well, that's one thing we've always tried to do, is try to bring the two sides together, because I am a firm believer if your historic downtown area is thriving, your community is going to be a thriving community. But the reality is everybody was leaving that historic downtown and going over to the east side to shop and to recreate and do a number of things. And so we had talked about this for many years. But then I'm trying to remember if it was 2018, I think it was, we literally said we're going to see what happens if we do a makeshift walking lanes, little parklets, some landscaping, some murals, and we literally took and just painted lines down a street. And then in some areas, to move traffic around, we put bells of straw and stuff just so that people could see what it would look like and see how it would work. And the community really, we had a lot of people that were against it. They thought it was really a bad idea, but we had a lot of people that said this is incredible. The little parklets gave our small businesses an opportunity to go out into the sidewalk and have sidewalk sales, and go, our restaurants could have outdoor seating for things. And then it just made people see and act and kind of follow the direction that we intended, and with the bike lanes and stuff. And we really had the community come out and say, that was really a good thing. You always have a few people that are against things, but this one, the community came out and said, okay, they fought the idea of the trial period really hard. Once we did that, everybody said, no, this looks nice and it makes sense. And so I think 2018.
So when how you just described this, is this how it will now physically move forward to bridge the two sides?
Well, there will be a few changes with like the bridge and thing. We did not put bells of straw up over the top of the bridge and separate. We actually focused on moving to the underpass and moving pedestrians through the underpass, as opposed to going over the bridge. And just because it logistically and safety created some major issues on a major road going up over the top of the bridge. But we had the plan and the idea and the plan put together of this is what we would do with this bridge to be able to encourage pedestrian traffic into our downtown area.
So I mentioned in the beginning of our conversation that your city won an $8 million grant. And when you applied for this grant, in fact, you called it a long shot. So what was it like to be awarded this?
Well, it was absolutely a long shot. If I would have, I probably would have bet the farm against us being able to get this because there are so many other communities that were applying for this kind of money and this big of a number. If our number would have been a lot smaller, I think we could have seen it would have been a little bit more achievable in my mind. So when we were awarded, when our federal delegation called and said, "Hey, you've been awarded this $8.5 million," we were over the moon. We really truly had kind of said, "Well, we'll put it out there. We apply for a lot of grants. We'll probably never see it, but we'll see what happens." And so when we received this grant, it was absolutely amazing, and we were over the moon.
So where are you now with the project? What's next?
Well, right now we're in the middle of the design and getting a contractor and stuff to actually do the work. And so we're hoping to have this started and moving forward full steam ahead in the spring of 2025.
So I have about a minute left with you, and I'm just curious, how hopeful are you about how this will impact your city?
Well, you know what? I'm not hopeful at this point. I know it's going to impact the city in a very positive way. We have a lot of really good things happening in our historic downtown area, and we have a lot of people that are actually going into that area and enjoying the history that we have and enjoying the beautiful architectural designs and things that we have. And so there's no question for sure after the trial period that we had. There's absolutely no question this is going to be an absolute boon for our area, and it's going to be very successful.
Well, Mayor, thank you so much for spending time with us and talking about this really exciting project. We've been speaking with Pocatello's Mayor Brian Bladd about his dream that's becoming a reality to bring the two sides of his city back together. This is the Idaho Matters podcast. I'm Gemma Gaudet.
If you like podcasts like this, explore more from the Boise State Public Radio podcast family. There you'll find a mix of daily news, Idaho voices, and in-depth series on a wide range of topics. I'm talking wild horses, political scandals, sustainable ranching, and militia groups in a post-January 6th world. Wherever you get your podcasts, just search Boise State Public Radio to find what Idaho's NPR station has in store for you.